And soul of the Cayman people. Thank you for keeping the culture alive.
There's business news every day. From East End to Georgetown, down into West Bay.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands. Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Cayman Airways. Call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama. And Digicel, Cayman's bigger, better network.
In answer to his question about the subjects.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Oh, what a compliment. For that, I thank you.
What is happening now? There are hopeless and hungry.
Now it's time for us to stand up for God or we fall to nothing.
It's time now for Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Listening to the general public, what the public is saying.
Good afternoon, Cayman Islands, and welcome to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, filling in for your regular host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks, this afternoon. And we have a packed house on Talk Today this afternoon. I'm actually really excited for who our guests are, especially our first guests. So in the first segment, we will be welcoming Coach Daryl Porter of Speed Athletics, along with some of the athletes. And then from 1 to 2 p.m., we have Dr. Lisa Hanley, Chairwoman of the Electoral Boundaries Commission, and Dr. Steve McField joining us to discuss the proposed new electoral boundaries. And then from 2 p.m., we welcome Hannah Reed, Communications Specialist, and Lisa Hurlston McKenzie, Senior Policy Advisor for Environment and Resiliency, both from the Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency. They'll be sharing some insights gathered after the public consultations on the proposed climate change policy. Now that was a big mouthful. I'm going to throw it back to Susan for a quick break and a disclaimer, and then we'll begin Talk Today with our first guests from Speed Athletics.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Live Communication.
Let your voice be heard.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
All right, good afternoon. This is Kathy Miller, filling in for Sterling Dwayne Ebanks this afternoon on Talk Today. And I'm very excited to welcome our very first guests. We have Coach Daryl Porter of Speed Athletics. Alongside him, we have some athletes. That's Ava, James, and Alyssa. We also have a couple more that are waiting to come in after the commercial break to talk to us about their experience. But it's especially important to me because Coach Porter, or I know him as Fitty. You can tell me how you want me to say it. But he was always my coach in sports here in Cayman, and one of my favorite coaches I've ever had in my life, and still a dear friend to me, and also my dog's godfather, basically. So I'm very delighted to have you here this afternoon, 50. I know how much effort and how much time you have put into just the development of sports in Cayman, just to get it going, to keep it going, and pushing athletes and seeing the development of athletes, younger and older, and your patience, your efforts, your visions are absolutely incredible, and we're very lucky to have you. So,
thank you.
Welcome to Talk Today this afternoon.
Thank you. Thanks for having us here.
I love the shades of red he's going. I never embarrass him like this, but you deserve those accolades for sure. Tell us about Speed Athletics.
Well, let's see here. We are now coming upon the end of our fourth season. We established ourselves late 2019 for the 2020 season. Had a couple holdbacks with the COVID like everyone else, but once we got back out to the track, we start doing well. We started off with 12 athletes. We are now currently at approximately about 120 athletes.
Wow.
So in a short time span, we've had large growth, yes.
In your club?
In the club.
Wow.
And that age is all the way from 4 years old all the way up to, don't want to give too many age groups away as far as the older folks, but they're in the 40s.
Oh, okay.
So like we're definitely up there. So, and it's catering to everybody, and we're trying to expand now, not just be in track and field alone. We're trying to transition over with the road races and everything as well. So a lot of things on the plate for us, but we've been having some fun doing it.
It sounds like you have a lot going on and a good vision ahead of you. There's a few different athletic clubs in Cayman. So what makes speed athletics a little different? Like, what was your vision when you decided I'm going to build this club?
Good question. How to really break that down? We just wanted something that's got a little more push to it in the way of helping the young athletes get off to university. Typically, the way it goes right now, the mindset and the push has always been more of, if they make it to the national team, they get a little more scenery from outside coaches that help them get into university. If they don't get into the national team, which seats are limited at the table, right? So you got a lot of talented kids here to kind of get overlooked and overseen. And as you know, initially coming through with the programs, my kids initially were my focus. So watching how that all went down, knowing that they were getting to college age, like if they didn't make national team, I didn't want them to be passed up. Now, fortunately, they did make some national teams, but it's the other kids that still were getting left behind. So we initially developed this club with two former national athletes of themselves. We had a vision of making this much bigger and better, doing something different than everyone else has done, pushing kids to boundaries they haven't been pushed yet, and we're getting there. We're not where we ultimately had set a goal for, but we're definitely getting there. The kids that have gone off to university race, so we sent three kids off so far.
Congratulations.
Not two of the three have made national teams, so they have been seen, but it wasn't through national team that they got recognized by universities. It's just through a lot of networking that we've been doing, a lot of push through some college recruitment programs that we've been basically using, like kind of like LinkedIn and corporate, but we've been using these programs to associate with the universities up in the States, and it's opened a lot of doors. We don't have any graduates this year, but we got quite a few next year, and almost everybody that's graduating next year has somebody looking at them. So pretty excited about that. So we should be able to get a few more out the door and on the university as well.
That's got to be a great feeling, knowing that you're helping with that. Yeah, helping with not just the athleticism with children and what that really instills in all of us, what we learn from it. And I say that as a former wannabe professional athlete, so that's now retired from that. And I love it. I absolutely love sports, almost any sport. So I know the opportunities that can come from it. And I think when you're younger and you know the opportunities at that time and actually seize that opportunity and what's available for you, you're ahead of so many other people. Because it's such a hard age to be at as a teenager and understand, to figure out university and college, because how do you really know at such a young age already what you want to do? And then to kind of combine your interests and still be interested in school, it's a hard thing to balance.
It is.
So I love the fact that you are able to help these young people with their future through athletics.
And it's kind of how we run our program. We try to make sure that everyone focuses and knows that they're student athlete, student first. But at the same time, learning time management, because what a lot of people fail to realize here is the responsibility that gets tossed on these kids immediately when it comes to a student athlete. Coaches up in the States, they want you to keep your grades because you need them to stay on team. Right? The professors and stuff, they don't care that you're on team, so the work has to get done. So. And then you still got to balance social life too, right? Because you need that personal time. So it's challenging for a lot of these kids that go away. So part of what we try to do is keep preaching and educate them that, hey, this is what's going to be expected. This is the time management you're going to have. And at that level, you know, you're not just coming in after school and doing after school type program, which is what most of these clubs are. It's you're getting paid to be there essentially, right? So then they got to realize that, hey, I got to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning for weight room or whatever else the coach has on the plate. You still got to go to class by 8:30, whatever time class is. Then you got to turn around, go back to afternoon workout, go back to classes, still balance social life, and depending on what portion of the season, you're going to have a third training session, right? So, and that's the part where the kids have to realize, all right, this is where I balance this. This is where I get tough for it now, mentally prepared, so that when I get there, it's easier. Because we've seen some kids go away, and not just track, in different sports, and they weren't ready. And they've had a hard time adjusting. Some adjust and make it through. Others end up coming back home, and we don't want that.
When they are there, and you know that they're kind of having a little bit of trouble, do you offer some sort of support, even though you're in Cayman?
Yeah, I try to reach out. I try to reach out to the two of the boys that just went off this past year. I try to continually reach out to them throughout the season, check how they were doing with their on school campus activities and how they were doing with their track activities. And they had their up and down moments. Alex, he just recently won nationals for the open event for the 100 meter here.
Right. Huge
accomplishment for what he did, beating our local Olympian at the moment. Yeah. So that was stunning in itself. But Alex, he started off a little slow, but he got comfortable and he started doing amazing things up there. And Giovanni that went away, he had a little bit rougher time. But his events are a little bit different than what Alex was running, because Alex is more of a short distance sprinter. Right. So when they get an indoor, it's a 60-meter sprint, which is still flat. It's pretty straightforward, the same as outdoor. Where for Giovanni, it was a huge learning curve, because the indoor now, the track is curved like a racetrack for car racing, right? So it's a different feel on the legs. It's a shorter track. So a lot of adjustments for him. So his freshman year was a little more challenging than he anticipated. But I assume that once he gets back his sophomore year, he'll start tearing it up.
He'll be back on top.
Yeah, because now he knows what he's up against, and he's got the mental mindset that I'm not going to be defeated. So.
And he knows what it's like to go through those trials and tribulations right away. Yeah. We've got to go to a commercial break, and when we return, we will be back speaking with Speed Athletics, and we're going to hear a little bit from the athletes.
How can you make a classic BLT sandwich even better? Well, by adding tuna. Wow. The land meets the sea in Subway's new sandwich, the Tuna BLT, available for a limited time. The Tuna BLT is exploding with flavor. Imagine crispy, juicy bacon strips on top of tuna, fresh lettuce, and slices of tomato, topped with your favorite sauce and choice of freshly baked bread. Enjoy the best of both worlds with the Tuna BLT from Subway. Subway, eat fresh.
You know, as a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. I tell you what though, no more dreaming. This summer, I'm going flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, and now Panama. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old gal this summer.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
You know you've dreamed of that Mercedes, the smooth leather, the style, luxury that feels so good. Ooh la la. With the prestigious 2023 Mercedes-Benz GLA 200 up for grabs in this year's Lions Club of Grand Cayman Benzorama fundraiser. This is your chance to make that dream come true. Tickets are $25 for one, 3 for $65, or 5 for $100. Benzorama fundraiser tickets are available with Lions Club members and various sales outlets. The Lions Club of Grand Cayman Benzorama fundraiser supports numerous community initiatives, includes sightseeing, Christmas delivery, restoration, and social services.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
On a daily basis, making it easy to connect with you, our listeners. Add us to WhatsApp today, 925-3261. That's 925-3261.
Radio Cayman.
send a text or voice note.
Can I send a request, please?
You don't really have to ask us. Just send a request.
This is a shout out to my ex.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
Hey, is your phone slow, overheating, and dropping important calls? Don't fret. This summer, it's time to flip out with Digicel. Introducing the all-new Samsung Flip 4 with its sleek design and cutting-edge features. You'll flip into the summer in style and confidence. This summer, you can grab the all-new Samsung Flip 4, all just for $145. Flip into the summer with Digicel. Visit a Digicel store near you and grab the all-new Samsung Flip 4 and the amazing 7-day Prime Ultra plan today.
89.9 Radio Cayman helps you to weather the storm during this hurricane season.
One of the most crucial elements of hurricane preparedness is storm awareness. During the season, it is of utmost importance to pay attention to the latest local weather forecast, as hurricanes do not suddenly form or strike. There are various methods of advanced notification. Utilizing such may be the difference between a favorable outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool before, during, and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your community radio station, Radio Cayman, 89.9 FM.
This Saturday, July 8th at 4 p.m., come out to the It's Time for Praise Gospel concert at the Georgetown Seventh-day Adventist Church on Smith Road, beside the hospital, featuring Tanique Dunbar, Stephanie Graham, Nicola Williams, Keela Woods, Carol Robinson, Touch of Faith, the Celestines, along with Clyde Kane, O'Neill Duncan, Lincoln Charles, and many more. Get ready to praise. Admission free of cost. See you there.
Listen to the general public.
The Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Radio Cayman Talk Today.
Because
there are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman.
Waiting to take your calls right now.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, filling in for Sterling Dwayne Ebanks. I want to remind the listening audience that we are taking your phone calls. You can give us a call at 1-800-534-8255, 949-8037, 949-6990, or you can WhatsApp call or WhatsApp message us at 925-3261. And I'm in studio this afternoon with Coach Daryl Porter of Speed Athletics and some of the athletes. We have Ava, James, and Alyssa that are part of this athletic club, and I'm going to hear from them about what their experience has been like with Speed Athletics so far. So, Ava, let's start with you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing?
I'm okay.
Good. Let me know. Tell me how your experience with Speed Athletics has been.
I think Speed is like a team that you can really seek a lot of guidance with. I know I had my times where I didn't have the right mindset, but talking to coach, kind of letting him understand what's going on, he's really helpful with guiding you into the right direction. I think it's a very good team. If you're really kind of iffy about your events, he'll kind of guide you to where you feel most comfortable.
Oh, good.
So I do 400s. I never thought in my life I was going to run a 400.
400, okay. The hurdles or 400 straight running? No, I don't know.
Just the straight 400.
That's still a pretty big deal.
I never thought I would run that event. I used to just be 200s and just kind of stick with 200s. But
how did you figure out 400 then?
That was all coach. I did have a hard time getting used to it, but I realized I'm kind of more of a not longer distance, but not so of a short distance person. I realized that my endurance is good, so it's good to put it to use in a 400.
Oh, okay. How did you figure it out that she could shine maybe in 400?
You just see certain things in certain athletes, whether it's in practice or at the competition. There are just certain things that jump out to you with the mechanics, the way they're running, or just their overall drive. So for Ava's situation, she was always doing well, especially in her younger days there. Not that
You're still young.
Yeah, not that she's old, but as the other kids were like coming up and starting to get more competitive with her, it was messing with her mind a little bit. So we had to kind of look at that aspect of the mental aspect for the game and the game of it, and we start playing around, feeling things out. We're gonna drop her down to a 1. Where we're gonna drop her, push her harder in the 2. But then if we pushed her too hard, we might have pushed her away, right? Mm-hmm. So then when we started looking at the 4, it gave her an opportunity to have more field to work with. And it took some adjustment. And there's been a couple athletes on this team for sure that have the same thing. Like, you mentioned a 400, and like everybody wants to quit the team immediately. Right? Like, there's
an allure.
Yeah,
of
once it goes past
right?
that 200 mark, everybody has this fear factor. But it's just some athletes just become a different animal altogether when you move them to that position, and you just see them come alive. And that's basically what's happened to her. She started to open up. She started making major progress. Then she kind of hit a little stumbling block for a little bit there, and she was in a slump. But I have to give Ava, more than anyone in this team right now, the mindset that she went away from last season with and came back this season with was just absolute night and day. And she's been full beast mode all season with it because of it. And it's been amazing to watch.
Mindset is a pretty incredible thing to understand how important that is. And it wasn't until my 30s, mid-30s maybe, that I really understood that. So if you, as a teenager, are understanding how important it is,
from early.
Yes, that's a huge advantage. Where do you see yourself with athletics? Like, how do you see this kind of fitting into your future?
I really think, I know some people kind of like just drop it and they get a job and so on. So, but I feel like if you're really good at it I'm a good age now. I'm 15, so I'm like, I'm a good age for it. I think that it's something that's good to carry on into your future with you. So I will try to go to college with it. Maybe the Olympics.
Hey,
we'll try.
Sounds great.
But I do want to continue with it into my future. I don't think it's something I would just give up on, knowing like my potential. I think there's always room for me to improve.
Okay, awesome. That sounds great. Thank you, Ava, for
No
sharing.
problem.
James, it's your turn.
Yeah, it is.
Tell me, good afternoon. Tell me your experience so far with Speed Athletics, what it has been like being part of this club.
Well, basically, Speed Athletics, I've been with the club from 2020, like just after COVID. I originally came from a different club, but things happened, like former coach, so I had to swap clubs. So
you feel good in this club now?
I mean, yeah, I feel good in this club now, but at first, like, I was new, I stayed a little distant, but over time I just got used to everybody, like, and now I see this player has like a family to me, so
that's really good. That's excellent. I think that's probably one of the best things that coach could hear, that it feels like a family for you. Yeah. And it's also very natural to want to feel something out when you're new to it. It's absolutely natural to kind of hold yourself at a distance and figure it out and see if you really fit, or if it fits you. Yeah. So I think how you came into this club is a very natural thing for you. What events do you run?
I
participate in?
I do like a good amount of events, from the 400 all the way up to like 5K, or like roads, 5Ks, and like.
How did you figure out you were built for that?
Well, when I was younger, like back in primary school days, at first I wanted to be like a sprinter, like 100, 200, but I did like a test in primary school and found out that I'm actually good at like 800s and stuff. So I did that, and ever since then, like, I've always been like a middle distance, long distance runner, and until this day.
I'm kind of like you a little bit, because I love like 100 sprints, 4x100. Those were my events. But then I was a 1500 meter girl at the same time, so it just very very different in that sense. Do you see athletics carrying you further into your future?
Yes, I do. I really do. I want to, well, first I want to focus on myself a bit and try to get over to college and run. And then I want to make it to, like, you know, Olympics and World Championships someday. Like, that's my, like, ultimate goal. And even, like, while I'm, like, training, I actually want to, like, become, like, a coach and actually help people, because that's what I really want to do, help them.
That's pretty cool.
Help coaching and stuff.
And that must make Coach here feel pretty good, too. That's a pretty cool thing. I like to hear that. James, that's great. I wish you the best, too, with your future.
Thank you.
And I love the fact that both you and Ava kind of have, you know, we're talking world athletics, we're talking Olympics. You have that for goals. Those are big goals, are amazing goals, and they're achievable. So if you have it in your mind, you can do it.
Yes.
What about you, Alyssa? Tell us what your experience. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you.
Good.
I think overall, Speed Athletics is a good track club, and Coach Porter really like helps me get better at my events. I do 100 and 200, and it's just overall just makes me feel good about myself, like when I'm running and all that stuff, and it just helps me a lot because track is a very tough sport, and it's very hard to, I wouldn't say master, like I wouldn't say hard to master, but it's hard to like do good in and like get it right. I don't know, but it's like.
Do you think it's just so many competitors?
Yeah, and it's just the mechanics and stuff like that. It's kind of hard to master. But Coach Porter, he does help me get through it, and he does help me like progress and become better in my events. So I do enjoy track, especially with Speed Athletics.
And do you see a future in athletics for you?
I do, but like as Ava said, some people just do it for fun and then just stop. But I do want to go to a good college for track and hopefully get in like Olympics or World Championships.
Do you have any colleges in mind?
I was looking at IMG, but
well, IMG is IMG is like it's more of a high school though. It specializes in sports. IMG, there's a competition coming up next year that we're actually kind of hoping that maybe we can gauge ourselves and put it on our schedule to shoot for. So some of these kids have an opportunity to maybe get recruited into that high school and then have a chance. Because if you can get in IMG, then you're pretty much on your way. Devontae from Mustangs, he went to IMG and did exceptionally well.
Okay.
Like they definitely helped take him up to the next level because it's what they concentrate on, right? Yeah. So, and then they have so many more connections than we could possibly dream of at this level here right now. But at some point, we will get that our program here matching.
I love the goal setting. I love hearing about, you know, what you want to do and where you want to see yourself go. I think that's so important, and I'm glad that the athletes here so far that we've spoken to, you all have that. We have to go to a commercial break, and then I think we have a couple more athletes. We're going to rotate in. We're going to hear about their experience as well. So let's go to the commercial break. We'll hear from a couple more athletes and what the plans are for Speed Athletics.
They say variety is the spice of life. And that's why at Subway, we are introducing the new Boneless Hot Sub. Say what? The premium sub brings new ingredients like spicy breaded boneless chicken, French's crispy fried onions, and buffalo wing sauce, bringing a zesty and flavorful experience with every bite. Add some of your favorite veggies, cheese, and ranch sauce of your choice of freshly baked bread for the ultimate boneless hot sub. For a little spice in your life, try the new boneless hot sub from Subway.
So good and tasty.
And make it a meal with a drink and chips or cookies. Subway. Eat fresh.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
What exactly are the steps in the STEPS 2023 National Health Survey? Step 1 is a questionnaire where you'll be asked about your health behaviors and lifestyle choices. Step 2 involves home measurements like height, weight, and blood pressure. Lastly, Step 3 is a finger prick blood sample for cholesterol and glucose. STEPS 2023 starts on June 3rd. Learn more by logging on to www.gov.ky/steps.
You know, as a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. I tell you what though, no more dreaming. This summer, I'm going flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, and now Panama. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old gal this summer.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
It's a 24-karat summer with Digicel. In honor of our first truly COVID-free summer, Digicel is giving away $24,000. Be one of 10 to win $2,400 this July. For a chance to win, all you have to do is switch to Digicel, activate a Prime bundle, or simply pay your bill on time. It's that easy. It takes 2 minutes to get $2,400 richer. Make the choice to win today and visit a Digicel store near you.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, filling in for Sterling Dwayne Ebanks. And on this segment of Talk Today, we're speaking with Speed Athletics. I have Coach Daryl Porter in studio alongside some of the athletes from the club. Right before the break, we were speaking with some of the athletes, and then we brought 3 more in. So I'm going to hear about these young Caymanian athletes and what their experience has been like so far with Speed Athletics. So let's start with Jacob. Jacob, good afternoon. Welcome to Talk Today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Let us know what your experience with Speed Athletics has been like and what events you do.
I'm 16 years old and I do the 1, the 2, and the 4, so the sprints. And I can say that my experience with Speed Athletics has been overall, a really good experience. I've been with the track club for almost 3 years now, 3 years in September. And I've had a really good run. Like every season, I'm breaking boundaries, going further, in my athletic journey.
Good.
And, and I've been on the national team, gone to Carifta last year, thanks to my coaches and everything. I wouldn't have been able to do that without them, their guidance. And particularly this season, I've had some injuries, some, little kinks in the road, but I'm finally back on track. Thanks to them and, physio and all that. So, I'm just really grateful to be a part of this club.
It happens, and you can come back stronger.
Yeah,
trust
exactly.
me on that one.
He has, trust me.
You can. Do you see a future for yourself in athletics?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is definitely something I want to pursue further, go to college, maybe even after that, professionally. So, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right, Cameron.
Okay, so I'm 17 and I've been on the team.
Which is crazy to me, by the way. I still think you're like 8.
So I've been on the team the entire way through, and I do the field events, do all the throws, and it's honestly crazy to see how much the team has developed over the years and how much everyone has, gotten better. Like each season, everyone just comes with a new fire, and we just get better and better every season. And like the team chemistry is amazing. Like I can genuinely always say that it feels like a family with everyone, and we all get along great.
Well, you are family first to the coach. That is your dad, right?
Yeah.
But what's a little different with you is that you've been, since you could pretty much walk, I'm pretty sure, you've been running behind your dad in every sports involved thing that he's ever done. And so what is it like knowing that, you know, you've always been there watching him train, be a part of practices? I remember you were a part of our practices, and now you're an athlete being trained under your dad.
Like you said, I've been with my dad through everything. Every sport I've done or every sport he's done, I've been right there, and he's been right there with me. So to have him as my coach now, it's some days, you know, obviously frustration because he's my dad, so we get frustrated with each other. But at the same time, you know, he's my dad, so I can always go to him even on and off the track. So we have like obviously a different connection than a regular athlete and coach would have. So it's great to have my dad because he knows, like, he can talk, like, to me, like, how he needs to talk.
Right.
And I can get, like, you know, some coaches will sugarcoat how they need to say stuff. My dad doesn't sugarcoat stuff. Because he just wants the best. So he'll tell you exactly what you need to do. He won't, like, beat around the bush trying to tell you what you need to do.
Right.
He just wants the best.
Absolutely, I agree with you on that. Do you see a future in athletics for you?
I do see a collegiate career. After, I'm more interested in coming back to coach. I don't see going beyond that. I do want to try it, but if it doesn't happen, I do see coming back and helping to coach because I love helping coach, like the little kids especially.
That I know.
She's a huge help with our smaller athletes, with our under sevens especially. She always is there to help get them started. One of the parents is really heavily involved with that as well, but Cameron, every day before she does her training, she will help us get the kids through, and the kids love her too. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, I love them.
I love it, Cameron. That's awesome. Remarco, got to hear from you now. We only got a couple minutes left in the program, so I want to make sure I got a little bit of info from everyone.
My story with the club is actually kind of interesting because, as you know, well, you probably don't know.
I know a little.
I'm from Cayman Brock, right?
Yeah.
So actually, like, I started training with the club like 3 months before I moved down here. And coach was training me like over the phone.
I was about to ask, how did you
every now and then I would like record a video or something, and he would like critique it. He would just send me the workouts, and he trusted me, I trusted him, I trusted the process, so I just did what I could. I was training on
couple trips over there, couple trips over there.
Yeah. Like, I trained like one time over here. It was crazy because it was like really hot, and it was like, now that I've been training for like a year, the workout was easy. But I was dying when I first came, and to know that like he took the time on his day, like, no, I'm around him every day. I see how busy he is, and to know that like he sat down and like made a workout for me over the phone. He was training me over the phone, and I came over here, and I had really big expectations for like my season, but then got a little injury. But he was really patient and stuff like that. He was really patient with me, and just like he said, I came back a little bit stronger.
So you moved down to Grand Cayman?
Yeah, I moved down to Cayman to do school and train with the team fully and every day. It's what I look forward to every day because it really is. It's so funny, the banter and everything. It really is like a family, just getting out there, getting ready to talk trash with my teammate, and then just push each other to the limit. Is really fun.
Did you say what events you do? I can't remember.
100, 200. He wants me to do everything because he wants me to be attractive to the college coaches, and the college coaches like would prefer like an athlete who's like so at everything versus above average at one event. So, but there's certain events I promise him I will not touch, like hurdle events, jumping. I promise him I won't touch it. But he has me doing some throws and stuff. I kind of like it, but like
quick learner.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he knows. Trust me, he knows. So he's a good person to trust with that. Thank you so much for sharing your experience as well with us. And we only got maybe 3 minutes left, so I know we want to talk about some of your recent trips, and you also have a fundraising bake sale coming up, right?
Yep.
So let us know, I guess, about the most recent trips that you've been on and what that experience has been like.
So this is actually our first year of actually doing international trips at all. We just decided to pull the trigger that this is the time to get started. We had our introductory portions to the first couple of seasons, and now it's to really get out there because we've kind of established ourselves to a point here locally that now we got to get out there so kids can really be seen, and that's how we're really going to get them into the schools, is making sure we're going internationally as much as possible. So April we went away to the Miami Classic in Miami. We did really well. We took 13 athletes there. They were more of our senior high school aged athletes. We came back with 32 medals.
Wow.
So we were pretty excited for that one. We weren't really anticipating that, but we ended up doing better than.
And how many competitors do you think were in that?
So there was 15 other teams there. That event was supposed to be a little bit bigger than it was. It ended up being because that was around the same time that Florida was getting all the rain and a lot of people were flooding out. So it set a lot of people's trials and stuff for districts and states back. So their athletes for that competition wasn't as large as expected, but still 15 teams compared to us competing against normal 4 clubs here. That was still a big eye-opener. Yeah. Then in May, we just went away to Tampa. We went to the Baytaf Classic. That one, we definitely expected to pick up more smoke than anything because we had 85 teams there.
Oh, wow.
So we were just going there for experience. I mean, to keep it real. We did not have any expectations, but the kids, when we came back from Miami, mentalities started to change a lot. Like what we wanted to accomplish by traveling started happening a lot faster than I ever anticipated. Like people just start waking up like, okay, there is something bigger out here and there is something for me to get hungry for. Because here we're just a little too comfortable.
Yes.
And all these guys that did travel to that first meet, like it was a light switch. Like Jacob, for example, like he said he had some injuries, but he's come back and he went straight beast mode ever since. Ava, same. She's every competition since we've been back, she's been PBing lower and lower every single competition.
Wow.
So she's hungry, and it's what I like to see with all these kids. But while we were at Baytaf, we had our youngest athlete was Valentina, which I believe is 7.
Amari's younger than
Yeah, Amari. He's 5, getting ready to turn 6. He won a medal. We had a couple of different kids when it wasn't quite as many medals as Miami, but what we did end up doing is scoring enough points that we won the first place trophy for small club.
Oh, congratulations.
So that was huge to know that we were able to even do that, and we had no expectation of that.
You have less than a minute. I got to go to headline news, so you got to wrap it up. Sorry, 50.
No worries. Right now we're getting ready to head up to Texas. We leave Tuesday. It's a 3-day competition up there. The highlight of this competition, if we can get the high point value for the 17, 18-year-old athletes like Remarkable and Cameron here, they actually have a chance of winning scholarship money as well. So we're really excited about this competition.
No pressure.
No pressure.
So we're helping to fund this. There's a bake sale this weekend?
There is this Saturday.
So tell us the details.
So we were going to be at Foster's Airport.
Okay.
I believe we said we're going to be there at 9
9
for us. I think it starts at 9:30. That bake sale will be the setting up from 9.
9 to 3 o'clock.
9 to 3 o'clock.
So come and support Speed Athletics at the bake sale,
people, the
Foster's
better.
Airport, this Saturday, 9 to 3. And I can tell you from my own taste testing that I would hound this man's house for some of his baked goods. So not only is he a phenomenal coach, but this man can bake like no other. So trust me, you want to go to that bake sale and see what they have there. Thank you so much, Speed Athletics, for joining us. We got to go to our headline news, so I got to end the segment. But it was a pleasure to have you with us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
The headline news is brought to you by Health Services Authority.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. The leader of the opposition addresses crime and safer communities in his latest online video message. You can find it in full on the Progressives YouTube page. In international news, 3 people have been arrested after employees at a Kenyan cheese factory were allegedly forced to undress to check who was on their period. A manager at Brown's Food Company assembled female workers to find out who had thrown a used sanitary towel in an incorrect bin, an official said. She made the women strip after attempts to get a confession were unsuccessful. Brown's says it has suspended the accused manager pending an investigation. 30 million users have signed up for Meta's newly launched Threads app on its first day, the company's chief, Mark Zuckerberg, says. He pitched the app as a friendly rival to Twitter, which was bought by Elon Musk in October. Experts say Threads could attract Twitter users unhappy with recent changes to the platform. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
The headline news are brought to you by Health Services Authority.
The Health Services Authority has over 120 world-class physicians offering the most comprehensive range of specialist services on island. Our dedicated team of professionals provide the highest quality care in orthopedics, interventional radiology, women's health, geriatrics, and a host of other specialist areas. We are a JCI accredited organization with a proven record of excellence. At HSA, we are committed to caring for you. For more information, visit hsa.ky.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration and Lands. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Born in Creek, Cayman Brac on the 25th of September 1939, Henry Mansfield Connolly was the third of 8 children for Henry Kitchener and Olive Connolly. Following a 30-year career with National Bulk Carriers, he was one of few Brackers who worked with Cayman Energy Company doing the ship-to-ship oil transfers off the island in the 1980s. Following a medical injury, he retired from sea and started his own plumbing engineer company, C&H Plumbing, which he owned for 16 years. Prior to relocating to Grand Cayman, he was a volunteer during hurricane emergencies, assisting with the safety of the elderly in his district. Mr. Connolly was one of the original band members of the famous Brac Beach Boys, a member of the Sister Islands Veterans and Seaman Society, and also a member of the Seafarers Association on Grand Cayman. In 2003, he was one of 500 Seamen Medal honorees for their contribution to the Southwell years.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration and Lands. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, filling in for Sterling Dwayne Ebanks this afternoon. And in this segment, we have a very important conversation to be had with the Electoral Boundaries Commission. I'm welcoming Dr. Lisa Hanley. She's the chairwoman of the Electoral Boundaries Commission. We also have members Dr. Steve McField and Adrienne Webb. Good afternoon and welcome to Talk Today.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
ma'am.
How are you doing?
You're fine, and you?
Pretty
Busy.
good.
Yes.
We're busy and familiar with Radio Cayman. All right, so we're kind of in limited time. This is a pretty big topic to discuss. A lot of changes are being proposed. So let us start with just giving a bit of a brief background on the Electoral Boundaries Commission and what your mandate is.
The Constitution requires that the boundaries be revisited every 8 years. We have we were the commission 8 years ago that introduced the single-member district system to the Cayman Islands. And like any country that has single-member districts, you revisit those boundaries of the constituencies on a periodic basis because of population shifts. The Cayman Constitution requires this to happen at least every 8 years. And 8 years are up. We did this in 2015, and now it's time to revisit the boundaries. And none too soon. The fact is there's been a lot of population growth and a lot of population shifting. And so it really is time to look at the boundaries because you want to have constitutional you want to have constitutionally sound districts that do not deviate very much in population.
Is there any other factors aside from population growth that would urge you to look at, redrawing the electoral boundary lines that we have?
The Constitution asks us to look into several factors and not to look into another. In other words, we are not to take into account the racial distribution across the islands, but we are to take into account natural boundaries and existing electoral districts and population, of course.
Okay. So population is one thing, right? So we could have our population growing in a certain district or in all of the districts, but there's a difference between your registered voters that are in a district. So a population could be growing, but is it growing more so from expats and people who don't have a right to vote? So I think it's a little hard to examine that.
It's not, because the census takes account of Canadians, counts separately, Canadians and non-Canadians. So we're using census data because the Constitution requires us to look at potentially eligible voters. In other words, you don't have to be registered to vote to be counted in this process, but you do have to be Canadian. So you've had tremendous growth, but a lot of the growth has been non-Canadian, but that's not what's driving this process. What's driving this process is the growth and the shifting of the Canadian population.
Okay. And then as more Caymanians come along, we're going to increase that voter registration number as well, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah, well, hopefully. We still got to register to vote. Okay, excellent. So the scope of the work that you have to do when you go out into the field, what does that scope involve? What are you looking for when you're out there in the different districts? Give us an idea of what you're studying.
So we began the process by reviewing the population data, since that's the driver in this process, but we also toured all of the districts, all of the constituencies, looking at things like where we expect population growth to be given the development in the areas. We also had a 2-week series of public hearings in order to get public comment on the process, in which we outlined what we saw as the various options of how we might approach this process and try and get some feedback about what the public thought about the approaches that we were outlining.
So from those initial meetings, you've proposed some recommendations. You've drawn some new lines. Am I correct in assuming this?
Yes,
Yeah?
This set of hearings is we have produced some recommended maps, and we are presenting the maps and explaining how we arrived at these maps. This was a series of 3 public hearings.
Right, and it's tonight is our last meeting, correct? In Bodentown.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, tonight.
We had a meeting on Tuesday night in West Bay. And last night was in Georgetown, and tonight we'll be in Bodentown. Bodentown, Northside, East End is a combined meeting, and that starts at 7 o'clock at the Taylor and McCoy School in Bodentown.
Now, I have heard Dr. McField yesterday on For the Record, and I'm quoting you saying, Caymanian people only speak at the polls. And this is in reference to the poor turnout of people coming to these public meetings to be able to give their input. And it's a very interesting comment that you made, and I have to agree with it somewhat. Why should people care about going to these meetings, especially tonight being the last one for Bodentown? Why should people care?
Because boundary review is very important. It is one of the important features in the Constitution, and a lot of people, ordinary people, don't read the bulletins, newspaper. They rely on their cell phones. They rely on what they see on YouTube or someplace like that, and so they ought to come out, because this is one of the important factors that drives our democracy. The exercise of the vote and the international standards say that the vote should be equal as possible between the electoral districts, and that is very important. And then for their own edification to see where they might potentially be voting at the next election, because when you shift boundaries, when you review boundaries and you're shifting boundaries from here to there, your voting station might be different from it was the last time, and you ought to be familiar with that. Also, to be informed of this, how the system works in your country. Caymanian people are not very informed about the political systems in their country and how their government works and how the constitution works. Not too many people, even people in high places, don't know because they really don't care. It's not something that they were taught, and it's not part of our historical. It's not part of our educational system, and so for their own information and for their own knowledge of the constitution, how it works, they ought to come out. This is only two provisions in the Constitution. There are all kinds of other provisions that Caymanian people are not familiar with. Fortunately for me, when we were growing up, we understood the Constitution, we understood how the government works, but Caymanian people don't care about those things because they have not been taught that those things are very important. And the reason why I say that Caymanians don't vote at the polls is because Caymanians don't come out and sit to hear a meeting, to hear what's going on in a meeting like you go in other jurisdictions. You hear that there's a politician coming to town or whatever. You set up a time to go there, and when you go to these meetings, they're crowded with constituents. I remember when I was a younger person in Canada, and I lived in British Columbia. I was at the University of British Columbia.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Trudeau was coming west, and I actually followed his car when he came to town, trying to touch the man, trying to get wisdom from him, because we recognize him as being one of the intellectuals in our society, a very wise person, a very political person. That kind of history we don't have. Caymanians hide because they do not want other people to see them in public supporting someone, and it's because our politics have always been very personalized politics. It's not based on policy and so forth.
I think you make a lot of interesting points there, and I think that a lot of people don't tend to care unless it affects them. Would you agree with that?
I agree with that. Yeah. And what I say, personalized politics, people are not voting for a policy. They're not voting for a manifesto that's presented by a party or a group of politicians. They are voting because I like that person. Mm-hmm. Whether or not the person is skilled or whether or not the person has a qualification for that particular office, I like that person, and it doesn't matter. I'm going out to vote for him. Yeah. And that's the kind of politics that we have been used to. It's not the fact I'm going to hear what it has to say. I've heard this side yesterday. I'm going to hear this side today, and I'm going to sit and listen, and I'm going to observe to hear what they have to say. That's not how it works here, unfortunately. But when it comes to the polls now, if they like you, they will be out there on polling day to vote for you, and if they don't like you, they'll be there to demonstrate that they do not like you. But they will not tell you that. But
they'll show it on the votes.
Sell on the ballot, yes.
They'll show it on the votes, yeah. But the thing is, it does affect every single registered voter in the Cayman Islands.
Yes, definitely.
So these boundaries absolutely do. It could change where you vote because there's proposed new boundary lines. Mm-hmm. Is it in 15 of the electoral districts so far, or all of them being changed?
So there are 19 constituencies, and we have changed the boundaries in 15 of the 19 constituencies.
Okay, so that's pretty much almost every single voter out there will be affected by this, and you might not even have the same representatives that you think who will run again in that same constituency. So it's
that is the most important part about being moved to a different constituency, and the reason that you have to be aware of what constituencies you are in, because you need to know who the candidates are going to be on the ballot that you're handed for your district. You need to know and do your research before you go to the polls.
Okay, so we know that there's at least 15 of these constituencies that have been redrawn. I believe it's on the elections.ky website. I believe it's elections.ky. If not, just Google it. But you can find what these new proposals are, right?
That's correct. The maps are posted online on the Elections Office website.
Yeah, so I did see this last night. I also saw the 2015 recommendation from the Electoral Boundaries Commission. I think it's really important for people to realize that they can go and read that recommendation from 2015 to see what the recommendations are, because there's some similar themes and recommendations being presented in the proposal that you have to give to Parliament. I think it's the end of this month that we have to finalize things before you give it to Parliament. Is that correct?
This goes to the Governor as well as Parliament. Okay. And yes, our commission ends at the end of this month.
Okay, so we'll see some similar themes from 2015 to now. And part of this new proposal, I'd like you to tell us what some of these new boundary lines might be, or new ideas that you might have for the Cayman Islands.
So one of the big issues that we brought to the public hearings was under international standards, because Northside and East End are underpopulated, should we combine those two districts to form a single constituency and then take the seat that you've just gained and give it to Bodentown, which has grown enormously and has a population that merits 5 constituencies instead of 4. And the answer, I would say, was a resounding no, we should not do this. So you'll see that theme repeat itself. You saw it in 2015, and it is going to be part of our 2023 recommendations, along with the recommendation that the next time a boundary commission meets and has to grapple with this, it might be a lot easier if there was a guarantee in the Constitution that each and every traditional district, like East End and Northside, be guaranteed at least 1 seat, because it's getting harder and harder to justify creating 2 separate constituencies with a population that merits only 1.
Interesting. And if I'm correct, that would include the sister island of Little Cayman being able to have its own seat.
Well, there's a
No.
Am I not correct?
No.
Okay.
The Brackers were able, during the constitutional talks, to carve out a special place for themselves. The Constitution says that the Cayman Brac people, Little Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, are guaranteed 2 seats. And that's constitutionally mandated. They were able to do that. They're the only. That's the only part of the Cayman Islands that there's a mandate by the Constitution how many seats that you should have. That doesn't obtain in Northside and East End.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Traditionally, they were always single-member constituencies from the inception, and so, as Dr. Hadley said, in order to clear up this conundrum, this difference, this anomaly, perhaps we're suggesting that there's a constitutional change to allow them to have guarantees like Cayman Brac, so that each one of those electoral districts can have a seat each. Because when we apply international standards, we will find that they could not comply with international standards, because the population there is only like 600 or 700 or something like that. Meanwhile, the average population that we're dealing with is that 1,900, 1,800 people in the other constituencies. So you see, they would be so near 60% more than the people that they have in Cayman Brac and Northside and East End. And international standards say that we should not deviate more than at least 10 to 15% between them, because you have to have equal vote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I understand. Which is that idea, bringing this to Bodentown now, it's the idea of proposing another seat for Bodentown, which Dr. Hanley, I think you somewhat suggested.
So there's another corollary with the 2015 report in which we suggested another seat. It's not in our hands to say there should be another seat, but in case the Parliament decides to add another seat, we've drawn a Bodden Town map that does include 5 constituencies that would, in fact, meet international standards and would be much fairer for the voters and the representatives who have to represent those people. They would have districts that were more in line with the districts in Georgetown and West Bay.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that the population in Bodden Town has grown tremendously.
Right.
Because that's the area that the locals are able to move into and where land is available. And if it was just left at 4 constituencies, they'd just be totally overpopulated.
And not properly represented.
Probably not.
Right. And so, that could be a big change. So
it could be.
This is why it's very, especially for Bodden Town tonight.
Yes.
Your meeting is tonight, the final meeting, right? I'm curious, with this meeting that is happening tonight, so you have a proposal that you're presenting, people get to look through and comment on, but is anything that they might give in terms of input, could that still be considered to go back into your proposal that you might change things before you present it to the governor and Parliament?
Yes, it could. I mean, if there's some minor change, like some person on an edge and they think they might fall in other constituency rather than the one they're in, things like that can be challenged and we might take them into account. But at this stage, I don't think we can count as major changes.
Okay, because they had the opportunity to.
Yes,
to
the opportunity was given before, but they can still consider minor changes or suggest minor changes.
There still is time to get
your
word
time,
in. And it's, again, if you're a registered voter, it's very, very important for you to be able to give your input.
But bear in mind, this review is not based on the opinion of the constituents. This opinion is based on the increase in population.
Mm-hmm. It's
not saying, well, let me give an example. It's not saying that, well, we go here and we here and they say this and we do that. That's not how it works. It depends on the increase or decrease in population. That's what it depends upon. And what Ms. Webb is saying, that sometimes you might find a person that's straddling the boundaries between constituencies and they have traditionally voted over here, and there might be a challenge to them. They want to stay there. And we may look at that and say, okay, we are going to include you where you had traditionally voted. But it's not because what people say, what they want, is because of the population growth. And we have to maintain the international standards irresponsible of what people say their position would be.
I understand that, but there's also that part of inviting the public. So there is some sort of a reaction you want from the public, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So so they're influential to a point, right? And we want people to feel that they do matter and what they, how this process goes should be important to them, and we want to get their feedback on it, right? I think you guys have done a great job, especially in 2015 with what you had to do, because that wasn't just changing the boundaries, that was we changed our voting system. So that was a little bit more complicated in 2015 to now. And because that was a bit of a different campaign, I think there was a lot more, I want to say, like advertising gone into that. Now, I did hear a little complaints on yesterday's show about we feel the public is not really hearing about these public meetings, about proposing new electoral boundary lines. But there has been a little bit of this. And it's also up to the public to also go into the news, see what's going on, go into your government websites to keep up to date, right? Who is in charge of, I guess, your campaign budget to make sure that this information is being disseminated to the public, that they are aware? Is that something that you guys control, or does that come
No.
Okay,
No.
all right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know
No,
I have to ask because that was it was a complaint that I heard a couple times yesterday. So that's why I want to be like, okay, well, people might feel that it's just happening without anybody knowing, and that's why I was how does this campaign get out there to the public? That's why I did ask that question there.
The elections office is in charge of getting the commission appointed and getting us started, and they generally manage the meetings and the notices and so on. The advertising and publicizing has, I guess it could have been better, I'll be honest about it. But at the same time, I do know that the elected representatives also WhatsApp their constituents. One said he sent it to about 2,000 people. And at that particular meeting, we had 2 representatives and 1 member of the public.
Yes.
So they obviously knew, his constituents knew about it, but the interest wasn't there to really come. We put 1 meeting on a public holiday. They complained that that was not a good idea, but they would definitely come to meetings on other days. Well, the attendance at the other days was even worse.
Oh.
So, I mean, it's difficult people are so busy living their lives that sometimes it's hard to take time out and come to things like this. And it's also hard to get to the young people. I guess it could have been put on things that they go on like TikTok and Instagram, and I'm not sure if that was done, but we have to do a better job of getting the young people to come out to these meetings. But at the same time, I agree with Dr. McFeel that Caymanians are more interested when elections come around. There's an excitement, there's a buzz, and they all go in. In between, there's kind of leave it to the politicians to get stuff done.
Okay. Yeah, I feel there is a buzz around elections. Absolutely.
It's a tradition of what am I going to get out of it?
Yeah.
That's the kind of tradition. That's the kind of politics that we have been used to. What am I going to get out of this? Am I going to get something from the politicians for voting for them? That's how our politics have developed, unfortunately. And they know that we have nothing to give them, and so they're most interested in paying their mortgage, trying to manage their bank account, paying their light bill, paying their loan on their cars, and getting their school fees and children going to school. And they're probably saying, well, let other people deal with that. That's not something that I'm dealing with in any way directly. So we'll get around to it at the polls.
One thing that I do like about this meeting is that you can attend via Zoom. So you don't necessarily have to be there in person, meaning if you're at home, wherever you're at, you're somewhere, you can put Zoom on your phone, you can put it on your computer at home, you can still listen to what's going on, you can still look at the visuals which are published on elections.ky to have an idea as well. So you are providing the information where people can access it and still be able to listen even if they can't show up to the meeting this evening.
There hasn't been much attendance on Zoom either.
Mm-hmm. And it's getting that word out. So
Yeah,
I feel you.
exactly.
I Miss Webb, trust me, I feel you. And I am on the social platforms, and I don't see the information for these public meetings that have to do with the boundary lines. I didn't see it there. So, and it's something that, just for all of us to keep in mind, because it's an important thing. So it makes you think, okay, 2015, a real big push was put behind this. But now it's not, so why?
Well, it's still, it's still news right now. I mean, a new constitution has just not long come in, and we were going to single-member constituencies about something new.
Yes.
This is 8 years old now.
Yeah.
It's kind of stale, and there's no excitement in the air.
Yes.
So,
we got to go to commercial break. I want to let all of our listeners know that we are going to open up the phone lines. Please feel free to call us if you have a question for the Electoral Boundaries Commission. Give us a call, 1-800-534-8255, 949-8037, 949-6990, or you can WhatsApp call or WhatsApp question us at 925-3261.
Hey, is your phone slow, overheating, and dropping important calls? Don't fret. This summer, it's time to flip out with Digicel. Introducing the all-new Samsung Flip 4 with its sleek design and cutting-edge features. You'll flip into the summer in style and confidence. This summer, you can grab the all-new Samsung Flip 4, all just for $145. Flip into the summer with Digicel. Visit a Digicel store near you and grab the all-new Samsung Flip 4 and the amazing 7-day Prime Ultra plan today.
You know, as a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. I tell you what though, no more dreaming. This summer, I going flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, and now Panama. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old gal this summer.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Hi, my AC just went out and I need someone to come fix it.
I'm sorry, we're closed.
Okay, what about tomorrow?
We're only open on Thursday. And we're fully booked.
Have anything next week?
No.
Okay, when can you send someone out?
The 22nd is open.
I'll take it.
Of December 2023.
With the best medical cover for your dollar, we're like an AC technician who isn't too busy for you. CG Britke. Good like that.
We are in the hurricane season, and knowing what to do after a hurricane can be as important as preparing for the storm. After the passage of a hurricane, seek medical attention if it is needed at hospitals and clinics for those persons who are injured. Do not touch power lines and cables that are down. They may be active. Report them to 911 or the utilities emergency hotlines. Broken tree limbs should be removed from around homes or buildings if possible. This hurricane information has been brought to you by Breeze FM and Radio Cayman.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, filling in for Sterling Dwayne Banks. And on this segment of Talk Today, I am welcoming the Electoral Boundaries Commission in studio. We have Dr. Lisa Hanley. She's the chairwoman of the Electoral Boundaries Commission. And then we also have members Dr. Steve McField and Miss Adrienne Webb. And welcome back. Right before the break, we got into really the gist of what you were doing with this, proposing these new electoral boundaries. And I did open up the phone line, so a reminder to our listeners out there, if you'd like to give us a call, 1-800-534-8255, 949-8037, 949-6990, or WhatsApp us at 925-3261. I know Susan did get a call during the break, so I wrote down the question that the caller had, and that was, were the past meetings, I guess the public meetings, recorded and uploaded for view so that people can access that information if they miss those old meetings?
As far as I know, they are on the election website.
Okay.
And they can access them.
All right. So go check out elections.ky. You might see it there. I can't remember myself because I was on that site this morning. But I know that the proposal's there. I know that the maps are all there for sure. So hopefully you will find the meetings on there as well. And, I was going to say one thing about the website, but that slipped me. Another question that came in, how does the public get the necessary connecting information, the sign-in and the password to join on Zoom?
That's also on the election website.
Okay.
Definitely for sure it's there.
That is for sure. I know. Yes, I did see that.
Yes.
So if you are looking to tune into the Bodden Town meeting this evening, and you're not going to show up in person, you are able to listen via Zoom. So go to elections.ky and you'll find the password and login information to join tonight's meeting.
Yes.
You can also ask questions via Zoom. In other words, you don't have to be just just listening. We have the ability to ask questions, and they will be repeated to us. So we have answered questions from Zoom viewers.
Well, that works. In drawing out the new boundaries that you're going to be showing, that you have been showing people this week and tonight, what are the key things that you had to consider?
Well, the key thing is population. And so we saw a lot of shifting of the district boundaries south and especially east, because that's where the population is going. So any boundaries that changed because the districts were overpopulated or underpopulated, and we needed to move mostly eastward because that's where the population is. So that's what you saw in terms of adjustments. But we've also, some members of the public have had very specific, not very many, but some have had very specific ideas about what this movement should look like. And if we can accommodate it, we do.
Okay. Yesterday on the For the Record show, Dr. Hanley, this is specifically for you because I was a little confused, but interested in what you had to say. You spoke about creating districts centered around communities of interest. Can you explain what that means?
So I do this in a lot of different countries, and many countries have adopted traditional redistricting criteria that you might take into account. The Constitution here mentions some. Almost all constitutions mention population. They also mention things like natural or physical boundaries. Some constitutions talk about communities of interest. The idea is to take a group of constituents who share a common culture, a common language, a common religion, a common economic status, and put them together into a constituency so that their interests are represented. So, for example, if you create districts which are economically balanced, you can be sure that the economically disadvantaged are ignored in a process like that. While if you created a district that the representative would have to pay attention to the economically disadvantaged in order to be elected, because that's his constituency, then you could ensure that those interests are represented. The more homogeneous a constituency, the easier it is to ensure that the interests of that constituency, that community of interest, would be represented in Parliament.
Thank you for that explanation, Kat. And that's very interesting. What's both of your opinions on developing districts of community interests?
I agree with Dr. Hanley's description of those. I accept the same thing.
But I think it might be a little bit difficult to do that because of our size.
There's probably a reason that it's not in your constitution. You're a very small country and pretty homogeneous compared to a lot of other countries.
It would be kind of difficult to do that in a population the size of ours, to be honest.
But with all the, I should say, I don't want to alarm people because some people don't like because I'm very direct. And
that's okay.
When you become very direct, people don't like you. But
I know that. Trust me.
with all the mass immigration into Cayman, that our homogeneous society is fading quickly too. Because although we boast we have 140 or something, 35 nationalities or whatever it is here, there is no melting pot here. Every ethnic group that comes in here have their own almost community.
Yes.
And they have their own community affairs. And one does not interact with the other.
Now, that's a little normal, but to not interact is abnormal.
And that is the reality that we're facing. And I could give you a lot of examples, but a lot of people know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And that's going to be a problem for us.
Yes.
And when we go to these meetings, as we were discussed before we came onto the show, that idea dominates what people are speaking about in the meetings. The large increase in population and the possible domination by other ethnic groups coming into the Cayman Islands without some sort of regulations. It's going to be a problem for us. And a lot of people will say they don't like the single member constituencies anymore. They thought it was a good idea for us. But what they think it's going to lead to is garrison politics, garrison communities. And they don't want that. And they think it would be better for them to have to vote for anyone they wanted to, because then they could vote for 4 Caymanians who was born and bred here, whose navel strings were buried in their grandfather's house posts, and not some people who come in from other places and then have their own cultural nuances that are dominant. And when you study anthropology and movement of people from one country to the other, you'll find that people favor their own groups. Even in animal kingdom, that is so. And that's a fact.
And it's a familiarity. It's what you're familiar with, the culture that you know. It like I said, it's very, very normal. My mother being an immigrant to Canada, it's exactly what she did. It's how she was able to really find her feet in Canada and be able to plant them there. And English wasn't her language. She had to learn how to speak English in Canada. So it's understandable, but again, it's that not integrating part and the silos part that could be really, that's the scary part, because we all do learn from each other and we all can learn from each other and we can all grow together. But when we don't do that, we don't grow. And then we see all the problems that we're faced with, right? It's a pretty big, it's an interesting thing, especially the community of interests that Dr. Hanley explained a few minutes ago. It's a very interesting concept, and I brought it up especially because of the merging, or the suggestion to merge Northside and East End into one single constituency. And there was a lot of backlash with that in 2015. And what I understand, it was strongly suggested to not merge them, which, was, I guess, abided by in 2015. But that, again, you're bringing that recommendation to merge those two districts.
No, we're not merging those districts.
That's what was said in the yesterday. And for the record, that was what I heard.
No.
That's not part of your proposal.
No, it's not.
No.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that's what I heard on for the record. So I have to revisit that myself. Okay.
Well, there is an alternative that was given.
Okay.
That it might have been that alternative you heard, but we definitely are not merging East End and North Side.
So it's not part of your proposal.
It is not part of it.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely not.
Very good to clear that up.
Absolutely not.
That was very, very important to clear up, because that seemed to be, like I said, a big theme that was a no-no last time. And when I'm looking at it this year, I'm like, oh, what's going to happen? But now we know that is not part of that proposal.
I mean, if we had followed international standards, they would have been merged. And then a part of North Side, a little section which was overcrowded or overpopulated, would have had to go over to Bordentown 5 constituency. But there's no recommendation to merge North Side and East End.
Thank you for your strong no to that. So we get it. We don't want anybody to misquote me on that one. For sure. So population being that major factor that we're looking at changing these constituencies, are we also looking at mid to long, not really long term, because it's at least every 8 years that you should be meeting, right? As per the Constitution, the Electoral Boundaries Commission should be meeting at least once every 8 years. Could be more, but at least once. So within an 8-year forecast, I guess, have you been able to look at what the predicted population might be, and if these new lines will fall in line with what that new population growth might be?
Let me say that the reason that we proposed a 5-constituency Bordentown was the recognition of not only the fact that it has grown tremendously, but that it's going to continue to grow. And within the end of the next 8 years, the population will still, those districts will still be overpopulated. So I think that was part of the impetus behind the 5 constituency alternative plan that we proposed.
Well, one member from Borden Town basically told us that he anticipated another 2,000 homes being built in his constituency. Now, if you extrapolate that to say a minimum of 2 voters per house, and we know it's going to be more than 2, that's 4,000 people going into his constituency. So quite clearly, the Borden Town constituencies are going to grow tremendously over the next 8 years too.
Okay.
And as you have heard Ms. Webb saying that the census have shown that the growth is east. People are moving there because of the price of land and so forth. They can't afford to live in South Sound area or in the northwest area of the island. And I can tell you from the place that I sit when my other hat, population growth here is second to none. I think the population growth here is between 23 to 27%. Usually international is about 4 to 5 or 6%. And I can predict from my position as chairman of the Status and Permanent Residency Board, I can tell you that if we continue the growth that we have, importation, people start continuing to immigrate here, that by the end of next year we are going to have over 100,000 population. That is the statistics. That's the data. It might even be before then, because when you consider that the immigration, the work permit board, not the one that I sit on, the one below that, are processing between 4,500 to 5,000 work permits a month in an island this size. And then when you look at the 3 or 4 large hotels that are coming in to open next year or the year after, some of them are 200, 300 rooms, and you can figure 3 to 4 people for each room. They are going to need those permits for those places too. And so that if we don't proact now, like as Dr. Hadley says, by proposing or summarizing that the population is going to continue to grow that side because they're not going east. Caymanians can't afford to pay $750,000 for an apartment in 7 Mile Beach area. They can't even afford to pay the $500,000 for the average apartment now.
Most people can't. Those aren't being built for residents. You know that. We know that.
But most of them are the ones who, in 8 years, will be applying for residency. If the Immigration Transition Act is not reviewed and revised, so you can see if we're growing 23 to 27% now, what's going to happen in 8 years with people moving into those 2 districts east of Georgetown and into Borden Town. And as Adriana have said before in other meetings, that East End and North Side, traditionally, the people who move there, the immigrants who move there, are usually tourists. It's a usually tourist area. They're not going out there to live.
Exactly.
And so those 2 districts will never get the population as soon as it would be necessary for them to come up to the international standards.
We have a comment in regards to some of the comments you'd said a little earlier. Dr. Steve hit the nail on the head. We have a good example in South Sound. What percentage of the residents there are generational Caymanians? That was the comment that came in. We do have I missed the break, so we got to take a quick commercial break right now, and then we'll return and continue our discussion with the Electoral Boundaries Commission.
Here's a CUC storm tip. Severe lightning typically accompanies a storm or hurricane. Turn off your main breaker and unplug appliances to prevent unnecessary electrical damage. With CUC, you've got the power. It's a 24-karat summer with Digicel. In honor of our first truly COVID-free summer, Digicel is giving away $24,000. Be one of 10 to win $2,400 this July. For a chance to win, all you have to do is switch to Digicel, activate a Prime bundle, or simply pay your bill on time. It's that easy. It takes 2 minutes to get $2,400 richer. Make the choice to win today and visit a Digicel store near you.
Freedom, Cayman Rack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Are you tired of waiting in long lines at the pharmacy just to fill a prescription?
If what, child, let me tell you.
Well, now you can save time and money with ValueMed's online prescription service. Visit ValueMed's new website, valrx.com, and click the Refill Subscriptions button. Fill in your information and choose your preferred pickup location. Or email your prescription refills for ValueMed Walkers Road at rx-wr@valrx.com, and for ValueMed in Boddentown, email rx-bt at valrx.com. Say goodbye to the hassle of waiting in lines and hello to the convenience of online prescriptions with ValueMed Pharmacy. Visit valrx.com to place your orders today.
All aboard the Pizza Boat! Cayman's newest pizzeria. Birthday parties, office luncheons, summer camps, game night. Whatever your occasion, bring the fun with Pizza Boat. A Cayman twist to pizza. Bringing fusion ingredients from all over the globe to give you locally inspired fresh pizzas all day, every day. What's more, now you can enjoy a boat-shaped pizza with toppings of your choice. It's Pizza Boat. Pizza Boat, now open in Queens Court on West Bay Road. Pick up or delivery 949-0000 or order online www.pizzaboat.ky. Pizza Boat. Experience the ultimate pizza voyage.
I've got some beautiful clothes. I know just where they go. Puritan Cleaners.
Puritan Cleaners, now using the most popular and eco-friendly cleaning solvents. 2 convenient locations to serve you: Savannah Countryside and Eastern Avenue, Georgetown. Drive-through, rain or shine, free pickup and delivery services available. Call Puritan Cleaners 949-7104. Also ask about our in-house discounts. Puritan Cleaners, you feel good when you look good.
Puritan Cleaners, 949-7104. That's 949-7104.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Kathy Miller, filling in for Sterling Dwayne Ebanks. We only have a few minutes left with the Electoral Boundaries Commission, and there's a few very important questions also to get out. So to wrap up our conversation, I want to know, I guess, next what you'll be doing with the recommendations.
Well, once our report is finished, we have to present it to the governor and to the parliament. And it is basically up to the legislators to decide whether they accept and act on our recommendations. So it's really up to them. If they accept it, they can also suggest modifications. If they accept, then they will accept the boundaries that we have suggested. And there were substantial changes because of population growth. And it will result in people being in different electoral constituencies. There's no doubt about that. So quite a few people will have to be changed in the names. Because of the population shifts, some of the names no longer relate to those constituencies. So we have gone to a numbering system. Now, everybody, we have retained the West Bay district, we have maintained Georgetown district, North Side, East End, Borden Town. But where you live might not be relate to where you actually vote, because the voting goes by population. You'll still be in Georgetown, East End, Borden Town, West Bay, but where you vote might be different from where you voted last time. So you'll probably end up getting a new voter's registration card.
Anything else that voters should be aware of, that changes that they might have to expect aside from the voter's registration card?
Well, they might have a different representative from the last time that they voted, because that they might not be in the same district where he was. So they might have a new representative that they have to vote for, and that depends on who's running.
Okay.
But if it's accepted, for sure, they will have new registration cards.
Okay, all right.
But
so that's big info
what
for
they
voters.
need to bear in mind is that they're still living where they are. They're still a Georgetown person or a West Bay, East End, North Side, but they just vote somewhere else in the area.
Right, understandable. Okay, so that, you answered my other question that was coming in, so thank you for reading my mind. You were ahead of it. Do we have enough time? Let's say they do accept it. Does government have enough time? Is 2 years enough time to make this happen and for voters to be ready?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. And you would know, Dr. Hanley, because you do this all over the world.
Yes, no. It's traditional that you would make any changes, say 6 months before an election. You wouldn't go in and do this 3 months before the election. That might create confusion, but
you weren't here in our last elections, were you? Okay, all right.
But you have plenty of time at this point.
Okay, all right, excellent. From the public meetings that you have had, what has some of that response been? Has there been some overall themes that you're hearing from people? In the public meetings that you have had, what has that response been so far from the public?
The complaints mostly about population growth, the rise in population and so many people moving in. That trumps all of the other things that they have to say about the actual division moving electrical district boundaries. That trumps everything for every public meeting. It starts out talking about the electoral boundaries, electoral systems, and then it moves on quickly to, yes, there are too many people coming in the island. There are too many people. They can't get jobs, and that is the thing that trumps everyone. Of course, we try to manage that. I try to manage that bearing in mind that I wear another hat. Mm-hmm. But usually that is what is on people's minds right today. Jobs and increasing population and fear of losing their culture and their traditional history, and that they think that that's going to be obliterated by other people. And they use a lot of examples of local people in other jurisdictions and what happened to them. A lot of Cayman is aware of that, and that is the most dominant things that we hear at the public meetings.
Okay, thank you very much. We've got to wrap up. We're almost at our 2 p.m. headlines, and we're reminding people we have tonight the last meeting in Bodentown. Ms. Webb, if you could again give the details.
It's in Bodentown, and it's for North Side, East End, and Bodentown. All of Bodentown, all the eastern districts. And it's at 7 p.m. at the Theodore McCoy School in Bodentown. So everyone from those districts are invited. Other districts people can come, and we welcome everyone.
And you can also listen via Zoom. And you can send your questions via Zoom. Just go to elections.ky and you'll find the login information for Zoom right there. And with under 1 minute, Dr. McField, because you were very good at getting this point across, I want you to remind people that are voters why this is an important process for them to be involved in.
It's very, very important because you might not be voting in a place if you voted last time, and you ought to know who you are going to be voting for, who's going to be representing you. That's why the ordinary person who doesn't care about politics should come out, because I know they vote. we have the largest turnout of voters probably in the Caribbean, and that's very important. So come out to see whether you're going to have to Mr. G or Mr. H in your legislature, in your parliament after 2024.
Right. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining me this afternoon, for getting this information out and having this discussion. I think it's really important. I do hope you have a great turnout this evening, and I hope the process goes rather smoothly for us. So good luck.
Thank you very much for having us.
You're welcome. No problem. Thank you for joining. And let's go to the 2 p.m. headline news.
You are listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. The Financial Services Institute has launched a new training seminar that provides an introduction to the Cayman Islands financial services industry aimed at individuals interested in advancing their career in this area. Taking place on Monday, July 10th at the Grand Cayman Marriott Resort, the Financial Services Foundation One Seminar is the first in a two-part series. In international news, a tourist filmed carving names onto an inner wall at Rome's ancient Colosseum says he did not realize how old the monument was when he acted. Bristol-based Ivan Dimitrov made the comment in a letter of apology to Rome's mayor, saying he understood the seriousness of the deed. He etched Ivan plus Haley, his and his girlfriend's names, on the 2,000-year-old amphitheater with a key. His actions were filmed by a bystander in June and sparked condemnation. A 5-day police search followed, and he is now reportedly facing legal proceedings. Researchers in Kent have unearthed some of the largest early prehistoric stone tools ever found in Britain. Excavations revealed artifacts in deep Ice Age sediments preserved on a hillside above the Medway Valley. A total of 800 artifacts thought to be more than 300,000 years old and buried in material which filled a sinkhole and ancient river channel were discovered. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. Today's biggest news.
You know you've dreamed of that Mercedes, the smooth leather, the style, luxury that feels so good. Ooh la la. With the prestigious 2023 Mercedes-Benz GLA 200 up for grabs in this year's Lions Club of Grand Cayman Benzorama fundraiser. This is your chance to make that dream come true. Tickets are $25 for one, 3 for $65, or 5 for $100. Benzorama fundraiser tickets are available with Lions Club members and various sales outlets. The Lions Club of Grand Cayman Benzorama fundraiser supports numerous community initiatives, includes sightseeing, Christmas deliveries, restoration, and social services.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. We're in the final stretch of today's show, and I'm very happy to be welcoming in this last half hour. We have Hannah Reed, Communications Specialist, and Lisa Hurlston-McKenzie, Senior Policy Advisor for Environment and Resiliency, both from the Ministry of Sustainability and Climate Resiliency. We're going to be sharing some insights gathered after the public consultations on the proposed climate change policy. Now, good afternoon, ladies, and welcome to Talk Today.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
And how are you doing today? I've had a full day, so I hope your day has been a little bit more relaxed than mine.
Well, it's always a busy day at the Ministry of Sustainability.
Okay, yes, that's true. That's true. We are always very busy in government for everybody listening out there. So we know that we have just wrapped up your public consultation meetings, that you were doing a lot of outreach to the public, getting them involved in this climate change policy. We're going to I guess, start with a little bit of a background. Why are we doing this climate change policy? Get people up to speed, again, of where we are. And then I want to go into some of the data and insights you might have gotten from these meetings that you just wrapped up. So if we can start with a bit of a background, why we're doing this policy change.
Sure. Happy to oblige. Yes. So the climate change policy that has just wrapped up its public consultation period is an update to the 2011 policy that unfortunately remained in draft. So this policy is an update to that policy. And it's basically informed by a climate change risk assessment that was performed last year with the assistance of the UK government in terms of financing that risk assessment. So the policy is we hope, is a very evidence-based policy in terms of the strategies that have been suggested in the various policy areas. And that's the primary reason why it has been out for public consultation for the past 2 months.
Okay, and the 2011 draft that just remained a draft, was it more so because it wasn't necessarily a priority for us and what we could focus on as government and where to kind of put our money, I guess, in that sense? Is that why it remained in draft, or?
I'm not entirely sure, but needless to say, the circumstances have changed around the globe in terms of evidence of climate change taking place, warmer temperatures, sea and air, differences in rainfall patterns, more floods, more droughts, the world over, but particularly here in the Cayman Islands and Grand Cayman, especially in certain areas, certain districts, and a plethora of other indicators that we either have local evidence of or regional evidence of that we can somewhat extrapolate from.
Let's talk about the local evidence, because a lot of people think that climate change doesn't really, what does that have to do with Cayman? We're too small of an island or a nation to even really have anything to do with climate change, and it doesn't really affect us. But you said there's some evidence out there, so if we could just share what some of that would be.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I think we've been on the show before when we had our colleagues from the National Weather Service on with us to share some of this. So I hope I don't get any of the statistics wrong. But we have definitely seen an increase in air temperatures for both maximum as well as minimum air temperatures over the last 30 plus years on the order of 2.2, 2.3. It doesn't sound like much, but over that course of time, and even in terms of this year, it's been a record-breaking year globally.
We can feel it, Lisa.
We can definitely feel it. I was just going to say, I don't think we really need, a thermometer to tell us that.
No.
So that's sort of the easy one. I think the next indicator that's probably very visible to people would be rainfall. In terms of when it rains, it tends to rain a lot more intense. I don't know if anybody felt the rain last night.
Yes.
I fortunately was just able to get into the house just in time last night in the Red Bay area where I live. And not only was it intense rainfall, but it came with a massive gust of wind as well.
Yes. And I'm in town and felt that out of nowhere too.
Yeah, and even my little car shook as I was getting out of the car. But so that rainfall has produced a lot of intense site-specific and even sort of like regional level flooding, particularly in Grand Cayman, but I think we're seeing that as well in the sister islands in Cayman Brac, and again, not just necessarily tied to a tropical storm or an intense severe hurricane, but just, these rainfall events periodically throughout the year. But then conversely, we've also seen periods of drought, particularly in the summer season, that has been a lot more intense in terms of the drought periods and also longer. They're lasting longer, and they've also seen that in other parts of the Caribbean as well. So in many respects, we're seeing the local data here being backed up by what's happening across the region. Mm.
That's very interesting. Very interesting.
And we have the data, but from the tide gauges from the the rain collectors. I can't remember what they're called now.
It's all right.
You know
The
what I'm
rainfall
talking
gauges?
about. The rain gauges.
Rain
Thank
gauges.
you. Tidal gauges, rain gauges. We have that data, but also I think what came out not just last year in our in a survey we did to gauge people, local residents there, what they know about climate change, how they feel about climate change, and how they are perhaps in practicing their daily habits differently as a result of climate change. But not just through that survey, but also through our meetings. We also got a lot of anecdotal data from people in the different districts explaining to us how they are seeing those impacts in their own lives. You know, we've had farmers telling us about how the variation in rainfall patterns is impacting their crops, how the heat is impacting their crops. And even today, actually, in an earlier call, our colleagues in the Department of Agriculture were talking about the way that heat stress impacts our animals because their body temperatures are actually naturally higher than ours. So we think we're dealing with the heat, but, you know, also our cattle, our pets that we love are also dealing with these impacts too. And they are just projected to get worse, these impacts. So things we're already seeing and that are already disrupting lives and livelihoods are only predicted to be exacerbated.
Wow, it does affect everybody, and that was a point in my earlier segment. Was a lot of the time we don't tend to care about something unless we really feel like it's directly affecting us in our day-to-day, right? And I mean, I would say being able to source food would affect every single person out there. So if we know it's affecting farmers and crops, and granted we don't get everything from our agriculture here in Cayman, but we're starting to depend on them quite a bit as well. So no matter what, if it's affecting somebody, it's going to trickle down the line, and somewhere along that line it's going to affect you. So I know people don't necessarily want to believe in climate change, but we do have the evidence. We can feel it. Nobody can tell me you can't feel it. I knew that from KMAS on the weekend. I could feel that, and we started an hour and a half late. So we're well past midday, and it's incredible out there. For the meetings that you did have and the input coming in, did you find that was well attended? Were people interested in really giving their input?
I think the people who actually came out to the meetings were very engaged in the policy itself. They had reviewed the policy, they'd read it. A lot of people came with their notes ready to talk about it. I think that we were all hoping for more people to attend the public meetings, but we also understand that not everybody is interested in going out to a physical meeting. So we also did a virtual recording of the presentation, which was pushed out through our website and social media. Yes. So we had a lot of people interacting with the policy digitally. We had a public consultation hub set up online on gov.ky where people could go to download the policy documents, go through the resources, watch the videos, and we got a lot of engagement through those digital channels as well.
I'm curious, Hannah.
Yeah.
By any chance, I'm not sure if you have the data as yet, but is there a bit of an age range? If you could know from the respondents.
Yeah, actually, the majority of respondents were between, I think it was either 35 to 55 was the majority of our respondents to the survey.
That's pretty good.
It was. I think it's interesting. It shows you that sort of age range of people who are interested in it. But my caveat would be that all of the demographic data we included in our feedback survey was optional. So it might not have captured everybody who participated in the survey because you had the option to skip that section or say prefer not to say. But of the people who were willing to give their age, the majority were between 35 and 55.
I think it's interesting because it shows the interest in the generation. So it'll show if the younger generation, Generation Z, is supposed to be particularly concerned about sustainability, anything really, and about our environment and just new growth opportunities. Right? It's a bit of a different generation with them. So to get them more involved, that's always been a challenge for every government department, but everybody really who has a campaign out there. So the fact that you're even hitting 35 is pretty good.
Well, and younger than that, we actually had a couple of specific engagement opportunities with some of the younger people. So hosted a student information session at UCCI as part of the public meetings. And then also we had, I think, at least 2 meetings with Protect Our Future students, which was great because they're so engaged and so involved. So they gave us some great feedback, gave us some great questions to consider.
Perfect. We also had 2 engagements with Cayman Connection, the overseas students, and some of the perhaps the depressed feedback form might have been because some of those students were finishing up exams and or trying to get home.
It is that
during
time of
that
year,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they may not have had an opportunity to feedback that way, but that's also why, as Hannah said, we reached out to them and had specific focus groups a couple of times through the period so that they could, feedback to us in person.
They're going to feel the changes the most. They're that kind of youngest generation, so they're the ones who are going to be with our future the longest right now, right? So I'm glad that they are getting involved and that your efforts to reach them were pretty tremendous. So kudos to you guys for that. We have to go to a commercial break, but when we return, we're going to hear what some of those insights were from the public consultation.
From boat days to beach gatherings, leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. For all occasions and celebrations, let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
Homeowners, protecting your family and property is crucial during the season, and you should always assess insurance needs long before a storm makes landfall. Most insurers won't issue new policies or increases when a storm is imminent. Cayman Insurance Center's team of professionals can help owners like you find the most comprehensive coverage and competitive rates. Call the insurance professionals at Cayman Insurance Center 949-4657 or email info@cic.com.ky. Don't take chances with your family's future or your valuable assets. Call Cayman Insurance Center's insurance professionals today at 949-4657.
The offices of dermatologist Dr. Wayne Porter will be taking appointments from July 9th through 15th at his Crew Road Clinic. Appointment slots are limited, whether you're seeking advanced skincare, Botox, filler, cosmetic skin enhancements, or simply looking to reduce wrinkles. Dr. Porter offers a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. For more information, email dr.portercayman@gmail.com or call 946-9020 to book your appointment today. That is 946-9020.
You know, as a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. I tell you what though, no more dreaming. This summer, I going flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, and now Panama. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old gal this summer.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today, and we're in the final stretch of today's show. I'm Kathy Miller, filling in for Sterling Dwayne Banks, and we have in here from the Ministry of Climate or Sustainability and Climate Resiliency, we have Hannah Reed, Communications Specialist, and Lisa Hurlston McKenzie, Senior Policy Advisor for Environment and Resiliency. We were talking about the climate change policy, and I wanted to know from the public consultations that you had and the input that came in from people, what some of those, I guess, key themes or data that has jumped out at you so far that you can share with our listening audience.
I think just general impressions on a whole. We heard very loud and clear, please, government, just get on with it. Get on with, getting this policy passed so that it doesn't end up with the same fate as the 2011 one. So
Right.
that we heard almost at the outset at every single consultation, whether it was a public meeting or the one-on-one focus groups that we spoke about before the break. I think the second major theme was just to do with development in general and the connection that people were making with the climate change impacts that we just spoke about, and how either development has made that worse, has exacerbated some of those issues and the challenges that we'll face with addressing climate change, having had the sort of development model that we've pursued for the last 40-odd years, or conversely, how climate change may impact the continuation of doing things, you know, the way we've always done, and the need for changing the status quo, particularly in terms of coastal development, as well as protection of our natural buffers, such as our mangrove coastlines. So we heard those, I think those, I feel, were the two primary things that came out, but maybe Hannah might pick up on some of the other things that she can recall.
Yeah, I think I have the same impression, and it was generally, I think, very supportive of the policy and of the need for the policy, which was great because it shows, I think we all know that this is an issue the public is aware of, has an interest in, and a lot of people are recognizing those predicted impacts or those ongoing impacts. And a lot of sectors are already focused on efforts to manage those risks. So I think a lot of people in the private sector as well were quite happy to see this policy being proposed to show that government is leading the way on some of these necessary steps to increase our resiliency to climate change, reduce our vulnerability to climate change, and continue to ensure a high quality of life that everybody wants to enjoy. And the other thing I would say that came out was that I think a lot of people, even if there are some people who don't necessarily agree with why climate change is occurring, I think in general everybody recognizes that they are seeing these impacts. We're seeing them already,
right?
In their lives, in our lives. So it was I think there wasn't a lot of debate on that issue.
No,
it was
no,
really
we
about
didn't.
You know, what are we going to do? Are these the best ways to do it? Is this policy enough?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really great place for us to be in as policymakers, is that the community wants this. The community wants to see these steps being taken.
Yeah, a lot of people had some very specific ideas, which was fantastic. That's, you know, what we wanted to hear from them, not just about the strategies that were being proposed, but people were interested in going further. How is this strategy going to be implemented? Have you thought of X, Y, Z? And just to assure the listening public out there that yes, those sorts of things were taken into account. And as we are collating the feedback on the policy itself, we're also putting in those types of very specific feedback comments into the implementation plan that we're also starting to work on now. So work is sort of jumping a little bit ahead of itself, but we're eager to see where the public feedback can be integrated into the next phase of this policy's development. So we were very happy to get those types of specifics, even if they somewhat conflicted with a different group's view on how to address or approach a specific challenge, but that's fine. More information and more ideas are better than having none. So
Absolutely.
So we're very appreciative of that. And
so you have gotten a lot of solutions that have come to you instead of just necessarily complaints.
I don't think we've had any complaints per se. They were issues that we maybe needed to talk through.
That's excellent.
That the general public, say, put to us, and then when we got to perhaps a specific focus group that we knew that subject matter would come up, or we literally went through the policy and went strategy by strategy as it pertained to a particular focus group, let's say the development and real estate community, for example. And we didn't have a whole lot of pushback on any. It was just like talking through, well, how would this work? And okay, it might be difficult to bring everybody on board with this. Surely incentives are being proposed here. What kinds of incentives? So, then we would talk about that, or they would propose, something that would be helpful that we may not have considered before. So it was that level of discussion, and I think it was always, I feel, moving in the right direction.
As it should, and this is the whole point of it. So I think you guys have really shown a great example of when these public meetings go right, in the sense of people really wanting to come forth and offer ideas and solutions and want to see this policy change happen and actually be implemented and not sit for another 10 to 13 years in a draft form, right, and not go anywhere. It's a lot of time and effort that goes into making these changes, and we want to see it go through, right? What is the next step now?
So the next step is to finish the public consultation report that Hannah is doing an amazing job on. I saw a draft of it yesterday, but we're still collating all the information from the feedback survey, and also the focus group sessions. We have all our notes there, and putting that all together, and hopefully presenting that to Cabinet by the end of this month, so that we can get the official go-ahead to start dedicating a lot more staff time to the implementation plan, which I said we're sort of already starting to draft, because it just kind of makes sense to determine what should still sit within the policy, or what is a little bit more specific in terms of an implementing action that really fits better in the implementation plan.
So those are the things you're kind of looking at right now.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And does Cabinet has the the authority to either go ahead with what you're suggesting in the policy, or change things
Absolutely.
as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
they're a stakeholder in and of themselves, right?
That's very true. Very true.
Yeah.
And definitely
we consulted with them
this.
for the draft policy, obviously, before it went out to the public. So they're very much aware of what's in the policy as it is at the moment. So yeah.
Is there any other round?
They had first crack at it.
Is there any other round where it's going to go back to the public at all?
We hope that after the revised policy is Cabinet approved, that the implementation plan will at least land with the public and be able to comment on that, to see whether we got it right in terms of not just the policy and what carried forward into the implementation plan, but in terms of the specifics, as I said before, that we heard in the consultations on the policy and now the now that sit in the draft implementation plan.
I find it interesting that that both of you remarked that one of the big key themes that came out of these consultation meetings that you were having with the public was looking at development and how that is affecting our climate and what is going to happen in the future for that. It's a very key theme in the project that you're doing with the climate change policy, and it was just in my last show as well, which was just development and population growth and just how that's really affecting and changing Cayman a lot. And it's just so interesting that we can find these common themes in all different areas of societal life in Cayman, and how it really is affecting everybody. So I think it's very interesting that people can be a part of this process, because it does matter for our future. It really does matter how we're going to go about handling our business, basically, our personal business and our work lives. A lot of things could be changing. If we're looking at some of the major changes that might come out of this climate policy draft, what do you say those major changes might be that the public could look forward to seeing?
I think probably down the road, because these things don't happen overnight, but I think down the road it will be how government makes decisions, particularly in terms of large investments, large capital projects that will have climate risk assessments, that will be based in climate risk assessments, as well as any other sort of decision-making tool, business cases and cost-benefit analyses, perhaps even environmental impact assessments, which climate risk assessments are kind of already captured in most modern environmental impact assessment documents, but the policy states that those types of projects should be subject to those, so that the physical assets are protected as much as possible from climatic influences for the next 30, 40, 50 years, or the lifetime of the project. So that would be one thing I would say. And then again, perhaps on a sort of somewhat longer term, again, because of how sometimes it takes for legislative reform to actually go through the process of consultation itself, if it's a law or not so much with a regulation, because of course cabinet can expedite that a little bit more quickly than a bill from its outset. But I think those would be the longer term things that people would just have to be a little bit patient about, but also engage in, because there are consultation processes, as I said, with some of those as well. So it doesn't stop here. We hope that the public will engage in those as well. But I think those would be sort of the two higher level check marks that the policy would
people could look forward to.
People would look forward to with this policy going forward. Yeah.
Okay, great. We're at the end of our show, so if there's anything, I know the time goes fast.
It goes by too quickly.
It does.
I think the only thing I would say as a last remark is that even though the public consultation period has closed, right, for right now, before we get to implementation planning, we still have our email address, climate@gov.ky, open. And if anybody wants to continue to send ideas, send feedback, send comments that might be helpful to implementation planning, please feel free to do so. Or if you have questions about climate change, we're happy to receive those questions to that email. That email is going to remain open. And if you go to gov.ky/sustainability, that's where you'll find the climate change microsite and all of our resources about the climate change policy. So you can continue. The public is welcome to continue to view those resources, learn about climate change, and speak with the policy team that are doing such amazing work on this.
Wonderfully, and you are. I'd have to say you absolutely are. So
thank you.
Well
you so
done.
much.
I know it's a big project to undertake and lead. So I'm proud of you all, and I think you guys are doing a fantastic job. I'm happy with the response that you're getting, the turnout with that. And I guess we'll have to see what happens once you give this to cabinet and it comes back to the public. So is there a time frame on when we can expect that?
Well, like I said, we're hoping that we'll get to cabinet by the end of the month, the end of this month. So I suppose watch the spaces that Hannah just mentioned, as well as, of course, very happy to come back once we have something, more to report. And
absolutely.
Yeah, and we've crossed that hurdle, and we're moving forward down the track.
We are doing as best of a job as possible to keep the public informed about what is going on and the processes. That's why I was like, let's get you guys in here and see what those key data that came from those consultations, what it was. So thank you for taking the time to join us this afternoon, and we look forward to having you back on Talk Today.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you so much.
No problem. All right. Thank you to our listening audience, and you are back with me again tomorrow on Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Cayman Airways. Call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama. And Digicel, Cayman's bigger, better network.
Shaken yet standing firm. This is Radio Cayman.